He had a competitive streak in him that would scare the crap out of you. Brock and Dan were so cute. They were, these big strapping guys and not a lot of warm fuzzies. They're kind of bonding and preening and whatever, trying to impress each other. But they did really have this wonderful, loving friendship. They looked like a couple of high school guys because when they talked to each other, they would only refer to each other as teammate. It was like two kids getting together and talking about just the good old days and their buddy Dan and their buddy Brock and whatever. But they were very cute. Evie Gurney and I used to sit and watch. And of course, we were both wives. It was interesting because there are so many careers where the husbands and wives, lead very separate lives. I mean, that's more the norm than not. But it must have been generational or whatever. But Jeannie Davis and David E. Davis were a team, a pair, a couple. They worked together. The wives and the husband worked together and traveled together and did everything together. They were a couple, and in the eyes of their fans or their public, their reading public, they got to know the wives as much as they did the husband. Evie and Dan Gurney were the same way. They were exquisitely close because they worked together at the business every day. And Evie's been writing a book, Dan's life story. And then there was Brock and me. But we were all teams, the husband and the wife. And we all happened to be friends. Not that we saw each other that much. But we were very close. And there was a lot of warmth and camaraderie that we shared as couples. And it was very sweet and very unusual because usually you go to social occasions and the first thing that a wife says to you, a woman to woman, this is, men don't do this, but party conversation is, oh, what do you do? And it's very hard to, when you're living in this kind of weird world, of cars and equipment, and aftermarket products. And it's very hard to translate that to another human being that has no interest nor experience with it because their eyes glaze over and say, oh God, honey, she was really boring, So we all, kind of agreed that as wives, it was a very unusual situation. But Dan and Brock, they were really great. And so was David E. with their knowledge of history, the depth of information and personal experiences with Fangio and Mark Donahue. I mean, they knew all these people that most of us just read about or hear about or whatever. All those people lived for them because they were friends and they came in contact with them. So they had a wonderful sense of storytelling and a wonderful ability that I don't ever hear today. And Brock grew very weary of it as he got older because he said the history doesn't live for people anymore. It's kind of rip and read information. The younger journalists do not have a depth of information about the past and how the automobile made a difference, or putting it in the perspective of time and history and place. But Dan did, David E. did, and Brock did. And to sit, and their stories were just, some of them were horrible. I mean, they were really dreadful, of the faux pas that people made, or it was very gossipy, like the Housewives of Beverly Hills in New Jersey and whatever. You could get Brock and Dan and David together and have a wonderful TV series with the housewives of the automobile industry being the guys themselves. But when Dan and Brock did the Cannonball, Dan had refused to do it on the first asking when Brock asked. And he was worried about sponsorship, and he was, worried about getting hurt. He was worried about, would it be reasonable? Would it be safe? And, all the things that he had to worry about because of his career and the people that counted on him. So he backed away from it and wouldn't do it. And then as it got closer to the event happening, it was a personal dynamic between Evie and her father. Evie had to fly to Germany. This is close to when the cannonball was going to start, and to take care of her father. He had cancer and he was dying. I guess her father, she put her dad on the phone with Daniel, and Daniel was trying to tell him what was going on and, in the world, and trying to, here's a man who's dying, what is he going to talk to him about? So he decided to talk to him about this cannonball event. So he explained to his father-in-law, Evie's dad, that they wanted him to go, and it sounded like a hoot and all this, but he had to turn it down. And her dad said to him, "Why would you turn it down?" And, thinking he's so ill, he was, thinking, God, if I only, So he said to Dan, it was very prophetic, he said, "Daniel, you must do that event. It will be good for you to do that event." And he said, "If you don't do it now, when will you ever do things like that?" And that's what changed Dan's mind. And he called Brock and he said, "I'll be there." So when they drove together, Brock said the first night out they were coming across an icy bridge. Brock said, "I think we're going to die." He said it was glare ice, and Daniel was driving brilliantly. But Brock said it was really horrible, horrible patch. And it was late at night, and the moon was not that bright. The roads were all frozen over. So he said, "I'm just counting on Dan, because what am I going to do?" But he loved riding with Dan, and Dan was a very kind of pussycat of a guy, big cat. He had a competitive streak in him that would scare the crap out of you. I mean, I saw it raise its ugly head a couple of times, and I don't mean that in a defamatory sense, but he would get the bit in his teeth, and whoa, you just couldn't break his concentration. He was there. And I can remember Phil Hill and Alma, they lived near each other in California for a long time, and they would occasionally all go out to dinner, these race car drivers and their wives, and the women hated it. And they'd each have a fight with their husbands by the end of the night, why they had to behave so badly and so childlike, because they all each one was going to outdrive the other. And they would take turns driving because there had to be some sort of equilibrium or equality. And when they got behind the wheel of that car, the wives said, "You were taking your life in your own hands." And put them in with non-drivers or just regular street drivers, and you'd never see that side of them. But when they were faced with competition, they all just got tense and crazy. So, it's really interesting to see how ego and personality come into play, and people can turn it on and off based on what their needs are internally. But they were some funny stories about those guys doing really crazy things. My whole family was having a reunion up in the Thousand Islands, and there's a go-kart track. And they've got, for summer, for weekends, where they get, 15-year-old kids, boys whose voices haven't changed yet and they haven't shot up yet or whatever. So all my family, knowing, especially the boys, and they had good senses of humor, taunted him about let's go and race at the go-kart track. So he didn't need an awful lot of, encouragement. So off we go, the whole family, and there's probably 30 of us, to this little go-kart track. They're out there, they each get in their go-kart. Brock was a big guy, so he kind of towered over everybody. Even my cousins who were grown men, he towered over. So they all get in their go-karts, and the grandmas are there, and the wives are there, and their kids are there, the little kids who are, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy." So this whole zoo of people shows up, and they start out. And it's late at night, it's about 11 o'clock, they're going to close the track pretty soon. And all of a sudden, we're standing at the fence watching, and we can't see too far in the distance. It's dark, but bells, whistles, yells, shouts go off, and we all stop. We thought, oh my God, somebody's hurt. In the distance, we're all kind of on the fence straining to see who it is. These shadows of people are coming towards us. There's this giant man, obviously, and two little, about maybe 5-foot kids. One's on one hand, one's on the other arm. And they are walking this big, tall man across the whole go-kart track. And the big man in the middle has got a puss on his face. And he is furious. And who is it? Brock. They are throwing him off the go-kart track. And they warned him he was never allowed to come back again. And my mother's humiliated, my son-in-law, and the wives are embarrassed, and the little kids are going, oh, great, Daddy, look at him, he's arrested, So with this whole big adventure at this, and I never thought you could have so much fun at a go-kart track, but it was Brock, and he was competing against my cousin, who was a show-off, and cut him off, and that was the end. When he was cut off, that changed the game. And boom, he was into it. Oh, it was really horrible. And I'd never seen that. I'm married to him for 20 years. I'd never seen that side of him before.
Premier Financial Services has been a sponsor of the VINwiki YouTube channel for the last 4 years, and we love them for that, but we also love their Simple Lease. It's one of the most powerful tools in the world of exotic car financing. It allows you to minimize your payment, minimize your down payment, have the flexibility to move in and out of cars, and take all of the advantages that are available to a leasing structure. So check them out at the link in the description below. We appreciate their continued support of VINwiki, and since you heard about them last here on the channel, they were actually acquired by First Financial Bank USA. And what does that mean for you? It means they're now larger than any of the other exotic car banks you may have heard of. They can move faster, buy more deals, and give you even better customer service. So thank them for their continued support of VINwiki and use them as your tool to buy your dream car soon.